I'm not. I did it. I went to Georgetown and I'm a tester. You know, you go up. What are you doing? So yeah, I struggle with the name for this, and you know, for the purposes of the conference, I called it something else. This is what I wanted to call it and be introduced like by AC/DC Thunderstruck. I also got like, you know, a logo with lightning in it. So I thought, oh, that'd be brilliant. But so that I've struggled with the name for it, and that's why it's called this. So it is going to be about serverless and about test first, so don't worry. I'm trying to cram 45 minutes of material into about 30. I wouldn't be surprised if I run over. I will skip through some of the slides very quickly, where I would normally spend about 5 minutes talking about it, so that's part of the reason why I will be doing that. A little bit about myself. So I've been a tester for quite a long time and work for the CME group in Belfast at the moment. Yeah, I don't do avatars, but if I did, that's what it would be, the chaos monkey right there. I will reference chaos testing a little bit further on during this talk. Love talking about that stuff. Also, co-organizer of the NI test meetup with Chris here. If you haven't been along, even if you're not a tester, you should go. You will learn, and hopefully you will learn from this talk too. So one of the things what I'm going to take you through, I'm going to take you through an experience report of some new architecture that we were working on for a project. I'm going to tell you a little bit about serverless is, and then go into how we were using that in the project, and how we came to first loathe it and then love it, and how we use testing to figure out how to do it well, to be frank. And I get straight into it. So what is serverless? I found this logo or this infographic out there. It's probably too small for you to see much on it, but I thought it was interesting. The guy on the server side has no hair, and the guy on the server side has hair. You know, I think that says something about it. Quite often, what serverless is like microservices. If you think about it like microservices, it's like a small piece of functional code. It's very small. It does, you know, a very limited amount of things. You try and, you know, it's going to be getting or posting or putting something there, and it's ephemeral. It only lasts for. It's event driven. It kicks off, executes, and then it disappears, right? So the server that hosts it spins up as it's executed, it runs, and then the server disappears again. There's no further requests. So it's very small, and when you think about it, you know, and Garrison doing a talk about 12-factor apps, serverless really reduces all of those different 12 factors down to about 6, because you don't have to worry about all of the infrastructure. You just worry about writing your code, and writing it very well, and making it very small. And you're talking about dozens, possibly maybe 100 or so lines of code, and no more than that. So you got lots and lots of nuttless serverless functions doing lots of things and orchestrations, right? And that's very compelling. You don't have to worry about building a server, provisioning a server, patching the server, maintaining the server, the security around the server to an extent. A lot of those things that you would typically have to worry about, and load balancing, performance, all that type of stuff is just really handled for you. You just need to worry about building functionality and getting onto a platform, and then let it do its thing. And this disrupts the DevOps model, which, you know, we've been being taught a lot about recently, especially in large organizations. And DevOps is about bringing operations people in and letting them do chef scripting and doing all those good things that I just mentioned, you know, about building the servers and provisioning and all that kind of stuff. And this takes it away. And that's what that NoOps, that term NoOps comes from. That's something that came out a couple of years ago when somebody from Netflix started talking about, well, they're using serverless microservices, and they don't need DevOps people anymore because there's now NoOps. And you know, it was a bit of a pun. They do use DevOps, and they do operational people, use operational tools. But I think they were just trying to make the point that from a development perspective, this really simplifies a lot of things, and it takes away a lot of concerns that you would otherwise have to worry about. And it's really, really good, and you should do more of it. I'm going to talk about AWS Lambda specifically. That is one of the serverless platforms. That's the one that we're using. But one of the things with serverless, and why I think, you know, it's important that people should really know more about it, it has the potential to chew up and eat up the world of cloud computing. And by doing, you know, taking away some of those things you have to worry about, you start to focus on product. You start to focus on functionality. You know, it's a very compelling economic model because it's very cheap. You don't have to buy all those servers. You don't have to maintain them all. You don't have to worry about people to staff and do all that type of stuff. That's all handled by the platform. So that just allows you to worry about building a good product and getting it out there. So that's why I talk about the post-container world. You know, you stop worrying about all those things. Just get on with getting time to market, getting your product out there, getting footfall against it, and start making money. So it's very powerful from that perspective. And that's kind of what serverless is. So how we came to serverless, really what we were supposed to be doing on our project and our team was, but we're part of a cloud migration factory. So we're taking Data and applications typically live in the data center, and we're moving over into the cloud. We're building a data pipeline. We're going to use lots of nice architectural principles like event-driven architecture. We're going to build microservices, and build a big data lake. We're going to automate. And when we were sold this particular piece of work, as in, we've got a legacy system over here with lots of interesting data. We need to serve it up to a consumer, a website over here, and we want to retire a lot of applications, legacy applications along the way, and simplify the architecture. And you're going to do it with one merging technology with AWS and all that stuff. It is kind of take the data over here, shift it into here, and present it over here. Sounds nice and simple, right? As long as there's the platform there, as long as the infrastructure's there, as long as the practices are there. Simple lift and shift. Ish. And extract, transform, load. That's one of the, you could probably categorize it as an ETL process. Well, that's great. Okay. So this is kind of what we envisioned our stack to look like. So as you see on the far left-hand side, you've got your database, your legacy system over there. We're going to use Mirror Maker and Kafka using as a data enterprise bus to get the data into the cloud. Kafka sits on a bunch of topics. We consume those topics with our Apache Flink processes, which is doing different Flink streams to decode and do various transformations on the data. We'll enrich it with some reference data from Elasticsearch, and then we'll pipe it into a couple of data stores in Cassandra on the S3. So that's just all getting the data out of where it is, turning it into the cloud, enriching it and transforming it, and then getting it into a state where you're ready to present it out to a consumer. So those microservices A through to E there, this was a very high-level conceptual idea of how we're going to do it from the very early parts of the project. This is simplified down a little bit, so that we knew that there were certain moving parts that we would have to figure out and understand as we were doing it, and there were things we'll come across that we didn't know. But this is what we kind of originally envisaged. But of course, as with any project, the lift and shift only works if the platform actually exists, if they figured out how to do auto-scaling and how to deploy all the infrastructure in the middleware, and really we were going through a DevOps revolution, and still are to some extent. So as we were building the application functionality, we find that quite often the platform that we were supposed to host on just wasn't there. So it wasn't lift and shift. There's lift, re-architect some more, try and shift it. If that didn't work, re-architect it again, then shift it a little bit more, and then continue and continue. It was an evolutionary prototyping process, and that is a real thing. But there's lots of ideation going on, lots of discovery going on, lots of, okay, we think this works, it worked for a wee bit, now we need to change it to something else. And this is happening almost every other week, which is frustrating when you're trying to build application functionality, but you have to try and figure out what the actual platform, how it's going to allow your application to work, and how it's going to facilitate all that as you go. So that was one of our challenges. And it was probably so this is probably around Christmas that we'd gotten to the point that most of our data was in our data stores. We already started serving out, started building our microservices. We were talking about drop wizard libraries, RESTful services, load balancers, on EC2 instances, all the type of traditional stuff, the way you would traditionally think about a microservices architecture. And chef scripting, and how do we automate deployments and do all that type of good stuff. And we'd already started making progress in building that. And then a couple of the architects walked into the room and said, well, why don't you just do it with a Lambda? In fact, you should do it with a Lambda. We've built one over here with a much smaller application, and it's written in Node.js. And at that point, it was freak out, major freak out, and a lot of consternation, partly because so many things have been shifting and we didn't need this, and we were under a little delivery pressure, but also because, you mentioned the dirty word there, Node.js. No self-respecting developer does Node.js if you know Java. At least that's what some of the developers in our team. Some of them were looking at the window ledge and being, if you start making Node.js, I'm out. I'm not over that ledge. I'm Java. I'm doing Java. I'm not JavaScript. But it was interesting at the same time. This was also the look in the face of some of the guys as well when they heard this. So we had to go back to the drawing board and really think about, well, we don't know much about AWS Lambda. We know that we can use Java on it, but maybe that's not the best idea. But we know Java works for us, and we're very good at Java, right? So how do we go and figure out how to do this? How do we start to understand the product and all the concerns that come along with it, and how do we understand how to host and serve our application and our functionality on it? So this is kind of what the re-envisioned stack looked like. You can see that EC2 instances have been replaced by serverless Lambdas, and from the API gateways. Again, this is simplified to a certain extent. There's more moving parts in the air, especially on the consumer side and around some of the the networking, but that's generally what it boiled down to looking like. And this is why we're going to start building it. Then we get into, well, how do we...
Just in the diagram there, where the land isn't that, and what was replaced?
So, you see where the, I'll point it out. So here our lambdas sitting here. And this is our API gateways in front of our lambdas. Okay. So, to this point, we already had a very strong test discipline, right? So we were already doing lots of BDD, example mapping, story mapping, doing lots of good continuous integration, different types and suites of unit tests, a lot of automated stuff, large number of exploratory testing. The testers and developers were very close on that. So technical discipline and the testing discipline within that and how we deliver with that was, something that we pride ourselves on. So it was kind of baked into what we do as a team. So when we came to this new product, we started to think, well, how do we do this? And I don't think we did this consciously. I think at this point it was unconscious to a certain extent, so it was implicit. But whenever you come to start to learn about something new, well, quite often people think about testing comes at the very end of the process. It comes at the start, right? You start to ask questions, and to validate those questions, you have to run a test and try and figure out, can we uncover what some of the functionality is? So your testing informs what your design is, informs how you're going to figure out how to deploy, how you're going to develop, how you're going to push your code, how the platform works. The platform's black box to a certain extent. And quite often, whenever I talk to people about, can you tell me how you do testing? They say, we do functional testing. I'm like, well, that's great. If you're a developer, if I ask you how you do development, you tell me I write functional code, because that's a really crap answer. I don't want to hear, of course, I would like to think you're writing functional code. I don't have any use for non-functional code, right? So why would you tell me if I ask you how to test and to do functional testing? Because that tells me nothing. So this is more about, how we started to articulate and think about our testing up front and how we used it to help discover and how we started out by asking questions. And then we start to align tests against those questions against different types of tests for those questions and start to illuminate how we do things. So this is about figuring out what our known unknowns are and trying to discover what our unknown unknowns are and using testing to do that. And the testing mindset informs our design process. So it's all about figuring out performance and security and monitoring and deployability and scalability and all that type of stuff. So I had a couple of different types of visuals I was going to put together for this. If anybody knows or heard of the agile testing quadrants and the software testing program, I could have pulled these in here to talk about that, but I didn't think they would serve me particularly well, so I did it this way. I'm really going back into that idea of asking a bunch of questions and then starting to put some meat against those questions. So what type of tests would you try to run? So Func10 stands for functional testing, so that was one of the things we do. You obviously do a lot of, right? But what does that mean? It's like over 120 different types of testing out there. It's a minefield terminology, so how do you start to break that down and articulate that? So we do unit tests. I'm not going to go over the can of worms of what that means, but we do lots of stuff, at the code, the method, the class level. That's all continuous integration. But again, it's all just designed as part of a larger conversation about what questions are we asking and what risks are we trying to de-risk by doing testing. Some of the questions are from a functional perspective. Can we run this code locally? Is it easy to do this? The platform's in the cloud. We have to run all our tests in the cloud. That might be difficult. Can we mock this out locally and do that realistically enough that it emulates most of the behavior of the platform? The answers to that were sometimes yes and sometimes no. Does it run properly? Does it do all the things that it's supposed to do? Some of the particular points of interest, we were doing CDC testing, consumer-driven contract testing was one of the things. So we're a provider. We're building microservices which provide provide data to a consumer. CDC test is something I think everybody should do much more of. You can do this both in an automated and a manual way, and we started automated and then moved into manual because we only had one consumer. If you had many consumers, as a provider, it would make more sense to automate this, but we found because we have access to the consumer side code and we were updating the consumer side code, we didn't really need to do that. We could get away with applying it as a manual perspective. But what consumer-driven testing does is it makes sure it's an anti-corruption layer and makes sure that it codifies your service contracts from a provider and consumer perspective. It means that you're not, trying to build functionality that the consumer's never going to want, can't use, is that you're serving them the right data. So it's very good from a design perspective. So it's a service discovery pattern as well as a testing pattern as well as a couple of other things, but very important. we were doing mock HTTP tests. Again, I differentiated this from unit testing because the unit test is such an overloaded term. It means so many different things to different people. But the ability to mock out, how we do using things like rest assured, how do you do get puts, how you doing checking for response codes, are you checking for data consistency and data types, are you checking for encoding issues, all those things we can do with integration we don't need to do on a deployed platform. So again, trying to categorize, well, how are we going to answer some of the questions that we asked, and how are we going to put tests against those questions to validate and check, and how are we going to keep ourselves right. And we moved on into performance testing, and I'm skipping over the amount of manual exploratory testing we did with this, which was huge. And again, that's because we have to learn. And doing unstructured and structured exploratory testing is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think not enough people know how to do and should do more of it. And it really informs the design process. And this weaves through each part of the different stages that we take, from functional into performance, where I'll talk about performance in a couple of slides' time. We did a huge amount of performance testing, including huge amounts of telemetry, but that was based on just trying to observe with semi-automated tests and with hypotheses about how the platform should work, what type of data we were getting back and what that meant from a behavior perspective, and was that good enough from a performance perspective for what we felt our consumer required. So some of the concerns around Lambda, specifically around performance, we knew we were using Java. Java is going to increase latency from the way that the platform implements Java. It takes a while to load up a container with the JVM, and you're talking about it generally 9 to 10 seconds. So when you're going from a cold perspective, to cold container to warm container to serve a request out to consumer, 9 to 10 seconds is not good from a performance perspective. But we knew that would happen, that was the case up front. So we made a deliberate decision to go with Java, understanding that there would be a per response time, initial response time, for the initialization time for the container. But once it got hot, we knew it would go quicker and faster than if you were writing in Python or in the Node.js. Some of the stuff I'll show you later on kind of talks to that. So, but we wanted to understand how many scenarios around cold containers are we likely to find? How often is that likely to happen? How many consumers are likely to hit that? How many people are going to have a bad performance experience? And again, the platform's black box. We don't have access to the source code, so we have to go and test that. We have to have a bunch of hypotheses, a bunch of scenarios we put against it and then run against. So it's a very exploratory process. So doing a lot of that, doing a lot of other perf testing, again, different types, loads. So again, understanding what the differences between those things are. And sometimes I can appreciate that with the type of terminology you get in testing, a lot of different people are referring to different things in the same way, and this is sometimes not easy to understand the difference between. Security testing, we don't do enough of this, I think, but we did do a certain amount of semi-automated fuzzing, taking lists of big naughty strings and trying to fire it in both from a manual perspective and an automated perspective. We're doing a static scan as part of the continuous delivery. There's lots of with the Lambda. It's interesting in that the attack platform, the attack plane is very, very small because it's ephemeral, because it spins up and it disappears very, very quickly unless there's a lot of traffic. There's not much you could try to exploit. And the platform does protect you to a certain extent. And I think it is important we can make a few assumptions around what the platform is able to do, although I know Gary's on previously, obviously you can't do that. But with AWS being one of the most attacked organizations in the world, I think you can make certain assumptions that they're good at doing certain things and locking down the platform. But again, a bunch of questions we ask, are we using the right secure libraries? Can we fuzz our way past the system? Can we break out of the containers? Is there any way to inject any maliciousness in there? And again, trying different things to do that. The one thing that I really want to call out here as well is manual chaos testing, manual mundane. Chaos testing, by another term, I would call it, fuzzing. Can we do that? You can do that in an automated way, right? So, chaos monkey is Netflix's modern definition of fuzzing and tool that they use, automated tool that they can use to go in and start tinkering around with the architecture, taking down different nodes and clusters, tinker around with auto-scaling groups and doing that in an automatic way. So basically injecting random events and seeing if your architecture self-heals, which if you're doing what we're doing, it's supposed to. If something disappears, it just comes back up again. This is the last of the auto-scales. So we didn't turn Chaos Monkey on for deliberate reasons, because we were going through so much different flux and churn. I don't think adding a little bit more in would have really helped. We will automate that and bring that in later, once we've got to a more stable place. But that doesn't mean you can't still manually do this. So, we do a lot of session-based test management from our exploratory testing, and that's the entire team in there doing testing. We've come up with specific charters. They can be functional charters. We assign them to different people within a room, but we also designate somebody in the room as the chaos monkey. So we give them a nice hat that looks like a monkey and say, right, every 10 minutes, maybe every 15 minutes, you're just going to go in and do something. You have access to the AWS console, you have access to systems that bring up and down, or the consoles that bring up and down our infrastructure. So if you wanted to go along and after 15 minutes and say, I've just taken down your Cassandra database, all the clusters, how's your functional testing going, guys? What are you seeing happening? What's happening in the logs? Still able to do stuff? Did it come back up again? How long did it take to come back up again? Did all the data persist through? Have you got a backed up queue? Or I just took down Elasticsearch. Or I just took down one of the nodes in Elasticsearch. You're now having performance problems. You should still be able to function. So be able to ask different questions and be able to do that within a session. And we always find problems. Always. So not enough people are doing enough of that, I think. And we find a lot of value in it, so it's something that we would call out. So a lot of those tests that I mentioned have a heavy presence of automation in there, as well as manual exploratory testing. So I want to differentiate between continuous integration and continuous delivery, and one of the things that we're still perfecting is continuous delivery. I wouldn't say we've quite integrated everything we want to from a testing perspective automatically run in there. But these are different types of pipelines that we're kind of building out. And the things that are important, I think, within this, so within CI, a lot of it's, it's all mock based on stubs. And that comment alongside, which you probably can't read particularly well, is that it just proves that your functionality can work, that the stuff that you're building works the way you expect it to. That's not enough. Well, hopefully that's obvious. It's not enough. That's why you do continuous delivery, and that's why on the other side, those types of tests against the deployed instance in the cloud prove that your tests do work, or prove that your functionality does work, right? Can work and does work are two different things. That still doesn't also prove that it's necessarily what the user asked for, right? That's why you add in, acceptance testing, and you get in, beta testing and user acceptance testing and those types of things, UAT. But this is how we kind of want to try and visualize the different things, the different types of suites that we were running from the previous slide, and how we're trying to build that into one thing. These are all separate things right now, but sooner or later we expect them to be one of a large pipeline that we put together and start to weave through. So on to performance. So one of the things that we did, and we're very conscious of, was trying to quantify some of the deficiencies that we knew that we were going to get with Java on the platform. The slides that I have here does not speak to the amount of telemetry, information, graphs that we find and did on this. I just pulled out two that I thought would be the most compelling for this. But you can see here in blue, Java is being outperformed significantly by Python and Node.js, but that's only under specific scenarios, right? So I talked about the Lambda initialization time being in the order of 9 to 10 seconds, and regardless of what your memory size is for your container when you're running with Java. But that's only the first time the container comes up. As soon as it goes hot, as soon as you start getting traffic through there, it really starts to level out. But we find, we didn't, while we had an SLA, performance SLA to kind of fit, which was very high level, we really didn't understand how the platform was going to work. And we really felt that it was important for us to go in and try and figure out, under different scenarios, under different use cases, under different hypotheses, what can we fire at it and see how it happens, and see what it does, see how it performs under kind of load. So you can see here with the memory size, 320 on the first graph, particularly bad performance. And as you increase, it got better from a response perspective. That is an initialization time. But we still didn't find that adding particularly a lot of memory made a big difference from a performance perspective. You're still running particularly slower than you would do in putting Node in Python. And one of the things that we found was, where are you going to get cold containers? Not just when you first spin up a Lambda, but also if you're getting a certain amount of traffic through, the Lambda needs to start the autoscale, start to bring up new containers. So we wanted to understand, as it started the autoscale and started to handle more traffic, you're going to get more cold container scenarios out there, which you need to handle. Now, with the platform, the statistical chance of many people hitting a cold container are small. It's going to be one person. after that one person hits it, the next person that comes along, even if it's a second or so later, is going to be fine for the most part. But we wanted to reassure ourselves, because of the black box that is the AWS, that this was going to scale for the consumer that we were building for. And again, it just required a lot of hours of different scenarios that we're coming up with from a performance perspective to try and find that out, to finally get whittled down to these particular statistics. Did it give us cause to think maybe we should ditch Java? It did. We didn't. We put other things in place. So, I mean, you can, on the consumer perspective, start firing out heartbeats to make sure that your containers are staying hot. There are different ways of injecting traffic, because you're only being charged on invocation. Your container can stay there and it will stick around for 5 to 6 minutes, and that's one thing that we had to try and prove. How long was your container going to stick around if there's no traffic? It can stick around for a certain amount of time before it starts to go cold and starts to, due to its ephemeral, shall disappear. So from a costing perspective, just trying to every once in a while ping it. It doesn't cost very much, right? So you can kind of keep your platform there. You're probably not supposed to do that. I don't think AWS recommends that, but that's certainly one of the strategies you can use to offset some of the problems. I mean, the question always was for us, with Java, why is it so slow? Why? And the question still hasn't been answered. It's one of the things we're going to be talking to the product team about. But it was interesting as we went through that exercise of exploring from a performance perspective and finding some of this information out. Those are the type of scenarios that you wouldn't have come up with, really, unless you took that type of approach. So some things on the to-do list for us, and some things that I recommend for others. So making CDC testing more part of what you do, especially as everybody's doing microservices, especially as everybody's kind of starting to move into the cloud and starting to use things like serverless architecture as well. You can do it manually, as we have, and there's nothing wrong with that if you have a certain type of scenario, if you have access to consumer code. If you don't have a lot of consumers, sometimes it just makes sense to do that rather than automate everything. But if you have more consumers, I would definitely recommend doing that. The mocking frameworks around AWS are gradually improving local stack, which is last year looks very good. This will allow you to replicate a lot of the functionality that you would only otherwise get in the platform in the cloud, locally on a local box. Serverless, which I stole the logo from, is also looking very good. I think it will become a paid service at one point, whereas local stack's open source on GitHub. So highly recommend taking a look at those. They do not support Java particularly well. I think that'll come. I think that's for in local stack that'll definitely come. Serverless is trying to implement that a SAM model for which improves and makes it easier to deploy all of your serverless architecture, but they're trying to do it in a technology agnostic way. So it looks good. Automation around more security checks. As I said before, there is a very small attack plane for AWS Lambdas, and there are emerging frameworks on how to do Lambda hacking. If you write your code well, the same with anything, it's going to make it very difficult. And the fact that it's ephemeral still makes it very difficult. And even if you were to manage to break out of the container, are you in a place where you actually do anything malicious? Probably not, is the answer to that, we think. So actually very difficult to try and inject bad things other than SQL injection into your Lambdas. And again, things around DDoS and stuff like that, the platform kind of automatically protects you from some of that. A nice little tropical thunder stealing. I would go full chaos monkey. That's certainly what some colleagues of mine and others have said before. Turning that something like that on is just going to tinker around with the architecture automatically and cause problems. Sounds like a terrible thing to do. I think it sounds brilliant. But I think we will do that at some point once we've got a bit more stability in our platform. If you can do this from day one and if it isn't going to cause too much noise, I definitely recommend it. It doesn't mean you can't still do it manually, as I've said before. So I would definitely practice that. Our perf tests, as I said, they're semi-automated. A perf pipeline I don't think it's any small or simple thing. And is it integrated into your own pipeline, or do you break it out into a different one? Those are the type of conversations that we have. Certainly leaning more towards breaking out into a different its own pipeline by itself. But the process of spinning up all your performance infrastructure, injecting all your data, running it over 24 hours versus rather than just doing it for a half hour, takes a little bit of working through. So it's something that you never generally do on day one, but as soon as you kind of get the opportunity to recommend. And yeah, one of the things that we found once we were using serverless, and then going back to that point that I made about product, the next thing that we've already started on is starting to build and integrate things like Lex and AI chatbot capabilities, I guess. And it was very easy to do once you have a serverless architecture already in place. So that really speaks to the power of being able to start to focus on product and intelligent systems. We're not doing that with Java. We were thinking around with Node and Python for some of that, and it's working quite well for us so far. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Java. If you were trying to do that with an AWS Lambda, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think you should validate your use case for it, and depending on your type of performance concerns that you may want to have, depending on the consumers you'll be serving data to. The automation of the deployment with serverless, with all the serverless architecture is quite tricky at the minute. I think that's still immature. The SAM model, as I mentioned before, that's coming out is making things better, but I still think there's some way to go. So while it is possible to automatically deploy this, all this within the cloud, it's not straightforward, and you'll spend a lot of time trying to do that. If you're using any type of platform like this, that testing mentality, I think is just having that from the start and weaving it all the way through, and using that as a way to discover how the platform works is really important, and how to be able to articulate what levels of tests you're going to write to answer what types of questions, to offset what types of risk are hugely important, and that's something that I think as an industry we do well enough. So I think definitely getting into trying to do that, whether that's by reading, whether that's by going to the NI Tester meetup and learning about some of that, or whether that's just by collaborating with colleagues and testers, hugely important. There is, so right now there is probably an argument to say we are very coupled to the architecture of AWS. I think one thing that we're already thinking about is how do we write some of our serverless code in such a way where we can jump from platform to platform, so it's vendor agnostic. I think that's going to come in time with what we're doing, but AWS is so very good with all the services that it provides that it's difficult to not start to suck up and use more services. Like as I said, Lex, all the CloudWatch stuff that it does, S3 and all that, so it's very easy to get it tied to the platform. But that's something to think about. Really, really important. The tester's not responsible for figuring out all your testing, it's the team that's responsible for this, and that's one thing that we did and made sure that we did is research. Don't just try to dump it all over the wall. And as the same guy was saying, exactly the same argument. Security is not all done by the security guys, it's done by the development team as well, and by the application team. Same thing with testing. Security is also security testing. It's just testing of different types. Yeah. That's one.
Thanks very much, Conall. That's us on break. So we'll walk downstairs, get coffeed up. For 20 minutes, I'm going to meet back.